What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to Nerd Media, and today I'm going to be diving into my spoiler review for Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts. Now, guys, I saw this movie last night. I'm seeing it again tonight and tomorrow, so I pretty much have all my thoughts gathered after that first viewing, but I'm going to be doing my rankings after I have my second viewing tonight, and I'm going to be posting, I think, 2 or 3 ranking videos tomorrow doing the MCU films, the Phase 5 movies, and all the movies we've gotten since Endgame. I'll be ranking all of those. So expect that video tomorrow. But for today, you guys are going to be getting my spoiler thoughts on Thunderbolts, talking about the ending, the post-credit scene, just some of the things that I overall loved, some things that I didn't really like, which there are very few of those, but there are some things that I think just went on a little bit too long in the film, but in this video, that's what we're going to be doing. So if you're new to the channel, hi, I'm Nerd Media. I talk about movies, TV shows, and comic books all the time. We do daily uploads besides Sundays on most weeks. And today we're talking about Thunderbolts, but that's not the only thing we're talking about this week, because we also have The Last of Us coming out on Sunday, dropping its 4th episode. It's the best show of the year so far for me. So with all that being said, subscribe for all of that content. Stay tuned for this video. So let's dive right into the video. So if you guys watched my spoiler-free review that I did for Thunderbolts last night, you guys know I really, really love this movie. It just made it into my top 10 for me as of right now. I don't know if it's going to go up or down after my next 2 viewings, but it is just breaking the top 10 for me. I think that the representation that this film does of mental health, I think, couldn't have been done better. And I really, really am excited to dive into more of that in this video. But I think just my general thoughts, I really, really love this movie. And I think that it is a great representation of mental health and depression. And I'm really glad that Marvel really took that topic seriously and really dived into that. And it really shows if you really make a character focused story that goes into something this deep, you can make something really nice. And I really think that this one, in that respect, this is a big win for Marvel. And I mean, Yelena is the biggest highlight of this movie. So is Bob, and so is Red Guardian. Surprisingly, I actually think that John Walker was a big highlight in this film for me as well. And I just really, really enjoyed everybody in this film. I think they all got their little moments to shine, and I really appreciate that. And I really am excited to see their future now because of this film. We now enjoy seeing them all together as a group, and now as the new Avengers. So I'm very excited to see them all together in Doomsday. I think the first thing I want to get out of the way that's spoilery, though, is I think that the way that Taskmaster dies in this movie is so funny to me because we all knew it was going to happen, right? So I was like, when we saw her show up, I was like, okay. I had a prediction that they were going to write her out of the movie. You guys know that if you saw my prediction video. I thought that they were going to write her out of the movie, but no, Ghost just shot her in the head, which I thought when I got home and I started making my spoiler free review, I was like thinking about that moment and I was like laughing about it because that's honestly the funniest way they could have done it because it feels like Marvel knew that we were going to assume that she was going to die and that was supposed to be paid off as a funny moment. I think, at least for the people who knew that she was going to die, I think it was funny. I think that it was just so abrupt and just out of the blue. Like it totally happens to just a moment where you don't expect it to. So I was like, okay, that's crazy, but that was really fun to me. And I think that overall, the story and connection that we have with Bob throughout this film, and the way that Bob and the Void are kind of separate, and how well the Void is used as a metaphor for depression and mental health, I think is done to perfection. And I think that the way that the Void is portrayed in this film is perfect, and they couldn't have done it in a better way. Because in many ways, mental health and depression is the villain of this film, which I think is such a cool concept. And I just really love that, and I really love the look of the Void as well. Like we saw it in the trailers, but like man, there are some other scenes that you don't see in the trailers in here, like when they're in the Void and the Void appears as his physical form, that are just like, dude, his form is scary, and that's probably one of the scariest things the MCU has done. At least for MCU standards, that is really terrifying to look at. And I just really thought that that made his character so much more menacing. But in a way, it's not really a character, it's just a version of Bob, and it's like the darker half of Bob. And then we get that scene of him just punching him consistently, I think, like beating himself up. I think that the metaphors for mental health and depression in this movie are so beautiful and so perfect. And just thinking about those moments give me chills because it's like so thought out, and I really loved that, and it really made me love Bob's character so much and get me so excited to see him in Avengers Doomsday. Like I think, like I just said a few seconds ago, I really do think Bob and the Void are the peak in like perfect representation of depression and stuff that we've gotten in like a comic book project in terms of movies and TV shows for that, because it's just so beautifully done, and it was one of the biggest surprises of the movie for me because I didn't expect them to tie the Void into that in the way that they did, because I thought it was just perfect to me. But let's talk about some other characters. Let's talk about Bucky. I think that he was kind of like the wise old man in this film because he's been through everything that they've all been through. So I really like how he's just so fed up with the Congress stuff. And I really think the first scene that we see him in, he just doesn't know what to do or say, which I think is hilarious. And it's really just strange that he even went for that in the first place. I think he just wanted to do good in a non like killing or like fighting way, which clearly he doesn't want to do that. You can kind of tell, but it's just really funny to me, and I think that that's a fun plot point that they do. But I'm really happy that he abandons that because it really does feel kind of out of character for him to actually fully pursue something like that. But hey, it was fun while it lasted, and it was funny to me. I think that Ghost and John Walker get so much more to do in this film than they ever got to do in their previous like times we saw them. I mean, John Walker, in my opinion, is the best written MCU character since Avengers Endgame, and I really do stand by that after this movie as well. Because when we get the stuff with him seeing his seat going into the void and seeing how he is just consumed by what has happened and what he has done in the past, but as Captain America, and he's not paying attention to his kid, and then we find out that his wife and kid left him. So it's like you get some really deep stuff with John Walker specifically in terms of like the side characters in this film, and I think that all of that is played out really well, and he gets some really fun interactions with the different characters. Like he has one moment with Bob when they're just breaking out of the incineration room that I think is one of the funniest moments of the movie. I think that this is probably the funniest MCU movie. I have to see it again tonight to determine that, but I really am leaning towards saying this is the funniest MCU film because things like Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff, they're funny, but I feel like the jokes wear off after a while. I don't know if that's going to happen with this movie, but man, this was a hilarious movie, and it also made me cry so much. I love when movies can really do that, and I feel like classic Marvel was always able to make me feel these emotions all at once in one movie. And this movie really just felt like that, and it was just so great. And then you get characters like Yelena and Red Guardian who are kind of like on their own in many ways. Like Red Guardian is just kind of like down in the dumps. He doesn't know what to do with his life. He's rewatching tapes of him as the Red Guardian on TV, which is so funny to me because that's just exactly, he has posters of Red Guardian up in his room, in his house as well, and like he wants to be a hero. He wants to go out and save people, and Yelena wants to be she wants to be more out there and more free and actually have a purpose, which I think the way that all of that really ties in with the new Avengers thing at the end of the film is really great because they all get what they want in a way, essentially, and I really think that that was played out really well. Now I'm going to talk about the third act for a little bit here, and then I'm going to dive into like the ending, new Avengers, and the post-credit scenes, but I'm not going to talk too much about the post-credit scene and the ending and what I think that could mean for Doomsday. I'm going to make two separate videos about that, but the third act of this movie, I've seen a lot of people kind of iffy on it and kind of like half and half. I think it was such a great creative choice for the third act. I think it was so great, and I really dug it. Like it was a really fast-paced third act, but it was really great. Like when we see Elena go into the void, she has to relive all of her past trauma in the red room, which I gotta say, I always find it so like I always think it's such a great story to tell when we dive into the red room more, like how we got to see a little glimpse of it in Age of Ultron. We got to see a lot of it in Black Widow. I like that we got to see a little bit more of it in this movie, so I'm really happy about that. And I just think that the third act was really, really creative, really well done, very emotional, and so intense. Like, I don't think it's one of the best third acts of all time for the MCU or for a comic book project, but I do think it's a good third act, and it would be in competition for the most creative third acts that Marvel has done with their final battle kind of things, because it usually follows the same generic thing where it's just the big third act where you got to fight the villain and they defeat him. This is, it still follows the defeat the villain, but in a way the villain is Bob, so it's a really interesting third act, and it is definitely, in my opinion, probably the MCU's most creative, and I just really, really love how deep they went into that. Now, guys, I'm just praising this movie at this point, but this movie is not perfect by any means. I mean, sure, it's in my top 10 MCU, but it's not perfect, and I think that my top 10 MCU are definitely near perfect, but they definitely have little flaws in there. Like, I think I have Black Panther in there, I have Iron Man 1 in there. Those two definitely have flaws for me, and so does this one. I think my only two flaws with this film is that I feel like when we're kind of breaking out of that big, like, storage facility with John Walker, and we're with Ghost and Yelena and Bob, I think that that kind of goes on a little bit too long, and then you start to feel like a little bit like tired out by the time they actually get out. But thankfully, the movie picks it up after that, and it's just nonstop, really, really fast movement, which I appreciate for this movie, because I didn't even realize after that that was like an hour ago. So that is probably one thing that I was like, okay, that went on for a little bit too long, but it did have some really fun moments in there, but I definitely think that went on a little bit too long for me. And this is just a small nitpick from me, but I wish that we got more time with characters like John Walker or Bucky, for example, or just more time with them. And when we see Valentina take in Bob and kind of like experiment with him and stuff, give him his suit, which the suit is awesome, by the way. I wish we got to spend more time with that as well, because we only get like two scenes of them together. And then he's in his suit, he's already listening to Val, they dyed his hair and everything. I think that felt slightly rushed, but again, I'm not gonna. That's just a small little nitpick that I have, but it definitely did bother me a little bit. I wish we got maybe one or two more scenes with that, or a little, at least a little bit more build up, because it feels like it just happens. But I still loved it. I still enjoyed the hell out of this movie. It was so awesome to me. This is a huge win for Marvel. Like, I cannot stress that enough. And yeah, like I said, I'll briefly talk about the post-credit scene and the ending, but I'm going to make two separate videos about that. That should be up today as well. So I think that the ending was really fun. I really am excited to see the dynamic that Sam Wilson's Avengers and this Avengers team are going to have with each other in Doomsday. I'm going to dive into it more in my video, but I think that sets up such a great little banter and conflict that we could see presented in that film that makes that film so much more exciting, which is what Marvel's all about, making us excited for movies that maybe we're not too excited about or just concerned or questioning, because I'm definitely questioning Doomsday, but now knowing that there's going to be a huge Avengers conflict with these two separate teams, it gets me so much more intrigued and so much more excited, and I'm so happy. I really love that ending, and I love the credits where we get to see like how the public is against it as well. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that are probably going to be against this choice as well, but honestly, I don't care. I love it, and I think that it's going to set some really great stuff up for Doomsday. And then obviously that post-credit scene. There's a mid-credit scene that's really funny. We finally get to see that the Thunderbolts are on the Wheaties box, which I really think that that was a fun little gag moment. I enjoyed that. But the post-credit scene, we get to see that we have a new Avengers logo. The Yelena, Bucky, Ghost, and Red Guardian and Bob are all in the Avengers Tower. They're kind of the new running Avengers, at least in that kind of in the New York area, and Sam Wilson's suing them for using the Avengers name, which I think is just again planting the seeds for a little conflict we're probably going to have in Doomsday. And then they get to see that the Fantastic Four ship has entered the atmosphere, which, guys, that's sick. That's awesome. But that really does confirm a lot of things for Fantastic Four, for me at least. And it definitely raises more questions, but it also gives us more answers. I'm going to dive into more of that in my post-credit scene video, but I thought it was awesome, and I am definitely excited to see them all return. I am just so interested to see how Doomsday is going to play out with all of these characters together and having these two Avengers team with this banter, and then including a Fantastic Four in there and having the X-Men in there. It's going to be crazy. I am very excited. I am going to be talking about this for days. I cannot wait, but I want to hear what you guys thought in the comments down below. Did you enjoy Thunderbolts if you've seen it? And if you haven't, go see it. Check it out. It's awesome. Why are you still watching this video if it's a spoiler review? But with all that being said, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you stuck around this long, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And with all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.